Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Kakagurui cast, where me and another fellow gambling addict go episode by episode through season 1 of Kakagurui. Matt?
Jaren?
How excited are you for our new tonal shift of Saturday Morning Arcade / The Mistake Zone?
Jaren, is it a tonal shift?
Matt, I'm pretty sure we're the internet's #1 Kakagurui podcast. I haven't done the research, but let's say I would go all in saying that we're the #1 Kakagurui podcast on the internet.
So Jaren,
let's go. Episode 1, season 1.
We're starting on episode 1. We could go in on Kakagurui Twin live action episode 1 because we actually haven't covered that one.
Matt,
Jaren,
for some reason, throughout the last week, I don't know why, I think I've messaged you on at least 2 separate occasions saying, hey, Kakagurui wasn't bad at all.
Wasn't bad. It was good. Arguably, it was good.
And then I think I did the thing, Matt, where I was going through some old social media posts and I went back to my 2019 list of the year. That was one of my favorite episodes of the Mistake Zone, a year-long retrospect. And honestly, Matt, some very 2019 Jaren had some choices. I agreed with most of them in 2022, but if we could go back in time and re-record those episodes, I don't know, Matt, I think Kakagurui XX might break my top 20.
Damn, Jared, I'm surprised. I'm legitimately surprised that it never broke your top 20 of 2019 animes.
For someone who... I did a lot of reaching on that list, and for the fact that I included 20 animes when I probably only watched like 32 that whole year, not including Kakagurui XX was a choice, Matt, just because I not gonna lie, Matt, just one, to get our anime quota filled in. I kind of went back and rewatched a few episodes of Kakagurui XX, and some of the games were rough, Matt. Tower of Doors is still not a good game to me, but just that character development, Matt. Just the character development from everyone not named Yumiko. Not bad. Not bad at all. So, Matt, for the Kakagurui cast, what are your thoughts on Kakagurui XX?
I liked it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I wish it had a bit more, I don't know, shorter games, actually. Because I think most of the games, there were some dead episodes, I think. There
was quite a few moments that were pretty dead, but Matt, as you can see, this is what our friends out there would call stalling, just because this is the Mistake Zone. This is a audio journal, an audio diary of sorts for our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, Matt Alba. We went through that. Matt, 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty telling episode where we discussed our most anticipated games of 2022. And in that episode, 3 games in particular came up.
Yeah.
One was, I think, between the two of us, our most mutual anticipated game in Saints Row. We also mentioned Midnight Fight Express and Soul Hackers 2. And this is quite notable because all those games came out this week. This was a beefy week in video games, especially in terms of titles that we're looking forward to and we're interested in. And Matt, last week during our Elden Ring episode, I think we ended off asking the question, how are we going to purchase Saints Row? Mostly because do we pay $60 to play it on a video game console, or do we pay the $20 premium to experience it on our beefy PCs? And Matt, end of the week, I come to you and ask, how did you purchase Saints Row 2? How did you purchase Saints Row?
I purchased it on PC, on the Epic Store.
Really, Matt? What a coincidence, Matt, because I opened the Epic Game Store and played Fortnite throughout this whole week because I did not purchase Saints Row.
Oh, I played Fortnite too.
Matt, are we going to talk about... Okay, sorry, Saints Row. So Matt, earlier this week, not only did Saints Row come out, but also the embargoes lifted
Mm-hmm.
for the embargoes for the reviews from all the different media publications this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this happened a day or two prior to release, and I looked through a review thread that kind of collected all the sentiments from everyone who did post a review for the game. And as I normally when prior to a game release, I don't necessarily take reviews too much to heart unless something really pressing or it comes to light.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the common sentiments for Saints Row that I saw was, the mission structure is kind of dated. This can be considered 2022's 2014 game of the year. Some of the character kind of motives are kind of a bit odd. They're not self-aware. Things of that nature I normally don't mind, especially since this is a Saints Row game where as much as I would like to see the franchise itself, innovate, see where else it can go,
Mm-hmm.
part of me always loves the open world crime game formula. Saints Row has a soft spot in my heart. So, criticisms like that don't necessarily bother me. But it's when it gets to the more technical aspects, that's where I'm a bit hesitant on. I think a lot of different reviews really highlighted some of the different bugs that were really reoccurring, how everything from being poorly optimized to kind of game breaking issues, where I think one of the common things that I read was towards the second half of the game, a lot of reviewers were running into the issue where they would, empty out the clip of their gun and then find themselves unable to reload, unable to switch weapons, to get into vehicles. And this issue would persist after resetting the game. And all they had to do was kind of delete their save and start anew. And Matt, we do the Mistake Zone. We do Saturday Morning Arcade kind of as a hobby where some of the games we talk about, pretty much all the games we talk about, are either purchased or we're subscribed to a service that allows us to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when last week we were talking about, are we going to pay $60 plus tax or $80 plus tax for this game? I think when there is such a rampant amount of bugs and issues, I don't think I can, feel good about making an investment on that title when I'm most likely not going to fully enjoy it just because of the technical limitations or just technical issues overall. And that's why, I made the hard call on my end of saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go through with this purchase. So that's why I come to you on the Mistake Zone at the end of the week saying, no Saints Row in my back pocket. But Matt, you did purchase it on the PC.
Yes.
How was your experience with Saints Row?
My experience with Saints Row was bad enough within the 2-hour grace period that Epic gives you to refund a game to refund that game.
Man, that's really rough. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of issues were you running into?
Okay. So first off, the reason that I pre-ordered the game because I wanted to preload it. Jaren,
Yes.
I was unaware that the Epic Game Store does not allow you to preload games.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
actually pretty rough.
So that was already like one knock against it. And then I was also just like, like you were reading all the reviews about how like buggy it was. And I thought, I own the game already. I might as well play it like for my own thing, because I wouldn't mind playing 2022's 2014 game of the year.
Yes.
Because I don't know, I think that's about where my maturity stopped. So,
Right.
I'm good there. But within that first, I'd say like hour and a half, maybe hour 45 minutes, I experienced like 3 crashes within the opening mission itself, and also in character creation where it like hard locked on me.
Oh, wow.
Within the game itself, I found that the sensitivity, like I was playing with the mouse and keyboard,
Okay.
and I found the mouse and keyboard controls there are not a lot of options for the mouse and keyboard sensitivity, because
Right.
I know that I play on a very, very low sensitivity. I cranked it down to 1 and I found it still too sensitive for me.
Oh, wow.
I turned down the DPI for my mouse and I still found it a bit too sensitive for me. But the thing that sold it for me, or unsold it for me, I guess, is that Jaren, the sensitivity that you use during turret sequences
Yeah.
and when you're driving your car is not changeable. It is
Oh, wow.
a ridiculously high sensitivity, and I just couldn't deal with that because I loved driving in the Saints Row games.
Yeah.
And to know that I am not going to be able to turn my camera the way I want to, it was enough for me to be like, this is going to be an unenjoyable experience to like go through. And if they don't have something as basic as camera sensitivity controls like on lock, then I don't trust the rest of this game, especially with how rough all the reviews have been.
Yeah. So you hit that big refund button, huh?
Yeah, hit that big refund button. It's actually a very small refund button, Jaren, actually.
Okay.
And it's kind of buried within 2 or 3 sub-menus deep to get to it.
Right.
And you can't get to it in the Epic store. You have to go to the Epic website and then like navigate through there.
Matt, I know I'm not necessarily one of those people that are like, ooh, Epic's game store, boo, I'm Steam only. Like, honestly, if I think for me, as I kind of alluded to during why I didn't buy Saints Row, if the price is right, I don't necessarily care what storefront I play on. But I do, not to be that guy, but I do kind of find it ridiculous how the Epic Game Store, despite being around for, how long has it been? Maybe like 2 years now or so? That
I think way more than that.
Yeah, some of the feature, I know this is about the Saints, this is our segment about Saints Row, but like it's still kind of wild to me how some of the more common store features that you're used to, not only on Steam, but kind of through the other clients that I've experienced, haven't been really implemented into the Epic Game Store yet, and that's still kind of wild to me. But yeah, anyway, with Saints Row, that's really unfortunate to see you kind of fall prey to all the different issues. And I think, I know I wanted to talk to you about this on the episode, Matt, but I guess for you in 2022, I kind of went through it, but how much do reviews and the price play into your consideration for actually purchasing a game?
It's kind of important-ish to me. Like I think even if I didn't buy Saints Row to preload it, I would have bought it to try it anyway, just because I know about like the refund period that you have. But I don't know, like knowing that the game doesn't get less buggy towards the end, probably like really affected my decision to refund it.
Yeah.
I think that at a below $40 game limit is probably where I'd be like, okay, after this, I really need to start looking at reviews.
Yeah.
To see like, first off, is it a buggy mess? Like, if the reviewer thinks it's unfun, then that's like one thing. Because like I'll go between multiple reviewers to see like what they think. So something about like, I don't know, unfunness isn't too much of a thing for me if I think it looks fun. But maybe, I don't know, after like 40, 50, like I need to start looking at reviews. But below that, I'll be like, whatever. Yeah. That's like, I don't know, four meals.
That's true.
Less than 4 meals probably. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah,
how about you?
I think for me, like, this has been on my mind since I started reading the reviews of Saints Row. And it's, it's kind of the poster child of underdeveloped games in Cyberpunk 2077. Again, since we didn't have the Mistake Zone or Saturday Morning Arcade when 2077 came out, I didn't necessarily get to really talk about my experience with the game to you a lot, Matt. I know Julian, our friend, was also playing the game at the time. And I think it was kind of odd where I played it on the Xbox One X. And for the most part, I ran into a bunch of different bugs during my time. I think when I think about the biggest one that instantly comes to mind was one, I was fighting a boss in this secluded alley, and I tried to kite them into the street where just to see if I could, and I would get a lot more space to fight them. And when I got them to the street level, they clipped into the ground, so only their head was sticking out. So this happened during 2 fights. Because of course, after I punched their head a bunch of times and they died, I couldn't actually loot their body because they were under the level. And that happened to me twice in a row. So I had the third time I had to actually fight them in the alley. And then the second time, or the second bug that comes to mind from Cyberpunk was when I was riding a motorcycle because I honestly found I hated the driving.
Same.
Just how the driving was in Cyberpunk. So I stuck to
I
motorcycles.
installed a mod for that.
Oh, really? I never. Well, I was on the Xbox, so I didn't really have access to mods. So I remember I was on my motorcycle and I hit a ramp, and then my character just stopped. And the bike was frozen in air, so I was able to jump off the bike and just look at it stuck in the air. I did like different pictures and whatnot. And so when all the stuff about Saints Row came out, I started thinking, oh, again, the only reason I stuck with Cyberpunk was, Matt, they announced this game so long ago, and I actually remember pre-ordering it. Say what you will about pre-orders, but I think for me, I bought a lot of my games in the last 10 years during the Best Buy or the Amazon E3 pre-order sales, where those have, gone the wayside the past couple of years. But early on in the middle of the 2010s, you could get some really good deals where I think I ended up only paying $40 for Cyberpunk.
That's not bad.
And that's where we lead to again of, okay, I kind of do agree with like the $40 baseline where, okay, this game is playable. I did end up, doing the refund through my Xbox One version of the game when that was announced. But then, I played a good portion of it and I did run into bugs, but at least I found the charm there. And again, it's one of those things where at the time I had a lot more free time. So I didn't necessarily mind, playing through Cyberpunk, seeing what crazy bugs I would run into. But for the most part, there was a decent enough foundation for me to go through. But again, this was 2 years ago now. And in 2022, for me, it is one, I'm not getting Saints Row for $40. And I have a lot less time to dedicate to a game that is a dice roll to me, where at least with Cyberpunk, even though I had to reload instances just to do them just because of a freak bug, there was nothing, I was never locked out of my progression. And with Saints Row, that when I saw that a lot of people were having to delete their saves because of the gun reloading issue, mixed in with the price, it was mixed in with it's still full price, and then mixed in with I really do need to spend my time more wisely. All things considered, that's why I had to nope out of here with Saints Row for now. Hopefully there's going to be some patches just so we can get our hands on it. But again, it's, as you said, for reviews for me, it isn't necessarily like a fun factor that I'm looking forward to. It is the technical limitations of, will I get hard locked out of somewhere? Where are the bugs? That's kind of wild. It's like with Cyberpunk, I would argue, sure, some of the mechanics weren't fully there. Some of the bugs were really bad, but some of the bugs were really dumb too that I got a kick out of. Where I think if Saints Row was cheaper on my end and the bugs weren't, game breaking, but more so, that's kind of silly, I might be more inclined to check it out. But again, 2022, I have to be more, I guess, strategic with my disposable income. But that's kind of unfortunate, Matt, to hear, your hands-on impressions with it. But I guess, Matt, for what I do want to ask you, based on your experience, your short time with Saints Row, to me, the Saints Row games have, it's their first mission that's always this set piece moment that really sets the mood for the game. When you got the first mission of Saints Row 2022 to work, how does it compare to the previous Saints Rows that you played? And does it at least accomplish the task of making you hyped for this game?
I think coming off of 3 and 4, I was disappointed at how, the opening mission to Saints Row is, I believe, kind of wacky.
Yeah.
But I think it coming after 3 and 4 hurts it.
Right.
Just because 3 and 4's opening missions were pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, Jaren, the one thing that really, really messed me up about the Saints Row opening is that in every other Saints Row, you don't see your boss
Right.
until you customize them.
Yes.
But for this Saints Row, there's like a brief second where you can see like the default character model of the boss, and I'm like, man, this game's fucking dumb.
Oh, that's rough, man. That's really rough. And that actually makes me feel bad.
Yeah, but I think honestly, I think if the opening mission was like, if they had this opening mission at the start of 3, I would have been into it. It was like a
Okay.
decent opening mission. I think the tutorialization at the start maybe could have been shortened a bit, but like I don't know. That's tutorialization, so I feel like that's just fine.
Oh man, Matt. We were so hyped for this game a few weeks ago. We can actually pull up the episode and listen to how hyped we were. But yeah, hopefully the game does get patched, and hopefully we will get to eventually talk about this game on the Mistake Zone. But for now, this is a mistake we tried to avoid for now at least. But Matt, there was another game that came out this week that I was looking forward to in Midnight Fight Express.
Yes.
How
was it, Jaren?
Unlike Saints Row, this was available on Game Pass. So, well, to be fair, it is currently $20 on Steam, 20 USD. So I'm not sure how that converts to our Canadian moon money, Matt. But it was, when I saw it was coming to Game Pass day one on release, I got super excited. I downloaded it on because of course I'm not buying Saints Row. The game's buggy. So I downloaded Midnight Fight Express. I waited until my lunch break. 1 p.m. rolls around. I log into the game, and then I'm hit with loading save data. And I thought, okay, this load time's taking a bit too long. So, I waited, and it's like 10 minutes, Matt. For a game I just started, I was a bit confused because initially I thought, I played the demo during Steam Next Fest. It's probably converting my save data. But then, wait, that doesn't make sense because I played on Steam. This is through Game Pass. And I kept waiting. 15 minutes go by, and I finally Googled it. And Matt, Midnight Fight Express has a initial loading bug where it won't load into the game for you just because it's trying to do something on the back end with some save data. They're currently looking into a patch, but there is a simple work around it. So Matt, this comes from the developer, Jacob Duenel, at Jacob Duenel on his Twitter. He says, the patch is getting soon, but the simple workaround is to change your Xbox profile gamer pick to one of the many readily available choices found by selecting your profile, navigating through my profile to customize profile to change gamer pick, setting a new gamer pick on your profile, and then restarting the game. Matt, simple workaround. It's trying to find some save data. You brute force it to bypass this check by changing your gamer pick for some reason. Matt, Julian, our friend, also ran into this issue. Simple fix, Matt. We just have to change our gamer picks. Matt, I come to you end of this beefy gaming week. Not only did I not play Midnight Fight Express, but I did not change my Xbox gamer pick. Julian also didn't change his Xbox gamer pick. Because, Matt, here's the issue.
Is this still of your avatar, Jared? Is this still of your avatar?
So, Matt, my current Xbox avatar is of this funny blue creature thing that I got from unlocking an achievement from the Xbox 360 game Amp 3. Julian's Xbox gamer pick right now is of Joanna Dark from Perfect Dark Zero. And the thing you need to consider is we're using 360 era gamer avatar or game avatars. They're not even optimized for the current, Xbox game avatars just because the current Xbox gamer picks are of, the display area is a circle. So it's this black circle with our stupid 360 avatars in the middle. So Matt, the thing is, if you change a 360 avatar, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
Once I change my AMP3 gamer pick, once Julian changes his Joanna Dark gamer pick, they're gone. We can't have them ever again. And Matt,
Jared,
me and Julian talked about it, and we both agreed Midnight Fight Express is not worth changing our legacy gamer picks for. And
you guys made the right decision. I would not have changed it either. I wish I still had my account like properly linked to my real one.
Matt, do you remember what 360 era gamer pick you had?
Yeah, it's a picture of my 360 avatar in a white suit with a white top hat and I think star sunglasses, and he's like jumping for joy or something.
And it's wild because the 360 avatars don't like technically exist anymore. Like the Xbox One avatars, I really don't like the look of them. But so yeah, Matt, that's why I haven't played Midnight Fight Express this week. I'm waiting for that patch just because I don't want to change my legacy gamer pick. And
I feel that.
So Julian asked me when we were talking about this, what game would you change your gamer pick for? Say something comes out on Game Pass, you're locked out until you have to brute force your way past the lockout by changing your gamer pick. And honestly, Matt, I couldn't really think of I couldn't actually think of something where I think I'd be more inclined just to cancel Game Pass than change my gamer pick at that point, just because I think the games I mainly play on Game Pass like right now are like the Forza games, and I can just get those in Steam if I needed. So yeah, Matt. So that's why I also wanted to bring to you this week on the Mistake Zone. Matt, do you have any weird gaming, sentimentality attached to anything, whether it be a profile, avatar, save states, or like that? Does anything come to mind?
No, to be honest, I think the Xbox 360 one would have been mine if I didn't like mess up my account merging.
Yeah.
If I was in that situation, I don't think there would be any game I'd ditch my good old Xbox 360 avatar for.
See, I think this is what is really weird to me when I was kind of thinking it over, where I would used to get, I kind of get this way with save states in a way where, of course, no one wants to lose their save states, especially if, I don't know about you, but I found myself with a lot of different games, especially growing up on the PlayStation 2 or, whatever games supported multiple save slots, where if there was a really epic moment coming in a game, like a great boss fight, I'd create a save point just before that moment and then save afterwards in another thing, just for the thought of, okay, maybe I'll want to go back and replay that to re-experience that moment again.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I never do, to be honest. And
yep.
But it's knowing that, I have the choice to be able to go back to there. And even if I never touch that game again, at least I know, somewhere it exists. And I think that's what makes me feel good. I have a save on my Xbox for Nier Automata where I have all the different endings. When you look at my save screen, it lists all the different endings from A to Z plus like the Omega ending or whatever. And if that gets deleted, Nier fans, if it gets deleted. But I think that doesn't really bum me out. Sure, I'll feel bummed momentarily. Oh, I lost my save state with all that fancy stuff. It's gone. And that's cool. And that doesn't necessarily faze me. But when I was faced with the knowledge of, okay, I need to change my Xbox avatar. No, I'm not about that, Matt. Yeah. I think it's a bit different just because if I lose a save, chances are it's not of my own fault. Like, maybe the hard drive crashed out, or maybe I lost the console, or maybe I just can't log. Okay, some of that could be my fault, but for the most part, it's mostly out of my control. But when I think about this Xbox gamer pick thing, like I manually have to say I'm getting rid of this, and I think that's what was like throwing me off about it. So that was a long-winded way of saying I'll probably play the game when it gets patched out, but there's no way I'm changing my AMP3 gamer pick.
Yeah, I feel that.
And then I also mentioned Soul Hackers 2 was also another game I was looking forward to this week. Matt, that is sitting in a shopping cart right now. I think it is 20% off on a website out there. I just haven't, I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, Matt.
I still don't know what that game is.
I looked at some screenshots and I saw different Persona monsters that I fought in the Persona games, and I thought, yep, this is definitely an Atlas game. So I don't know, Matt. I might pull the trigger on that at least just to play something, but I might see I still have a back catalog of like Kirby and the Forgotten Lands that I need to finish. I started Stray that I should probably finish, and that's only like a 4-hour game. Plus, Matt, I told you before, I have Bloodborne installed on my PS4 that I should probably play too. So, even though I didn't get to play Saints Row this week, even though I didn't get to play Midnight Fight Express, that's something that we'll see what happens next week or the week after, and what I report to you when I finally start playing. But a really weird week in gaming for us, Matt, considering this was one of our most anticipated weeks of gaming. And hopefully things look up after a few patches, Matt. Speaking about another beefy week, did you know that there was a Splatoon 3 Splatfest world premiere tech demo thing or web demo thing this week?
I found out about it an hour before it finished.
Matt, I don't know how this slipped my mind, to be honest, just because I think I told you during our most anticipated game segment or episode a few weeks ago that I literally bought a Switch so I could play the Splatoon 2 open network test Splatfest world premiere. And I remember opening up my timeline, I think on Saturday, and just seeing everyone talking about Splatoon 3, and that really, Matt, I felt bad about missing out because I never got to represent Team Rock or Team Paper or Team Scissors during the Splatfest.
Jaren, I'm like almost 100% sure they announced this as like, I guess repeatedly announced it on Wednesday or Thursday. They had some kind of like Treehouse Splatfest. And I had it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I had it queued up. It was like 2 minutes till the Splatfest started. And then I like walked away from my computer to do something. And then I never came back. And I just missed it.
Right, there was a mini direct for Splatoon this week. Wow, Matt.
Yeah.
As someone who does a gaming adjacent podcast, I'm pretty surprised this slipped us.
Yeah.
This slipped by us. But Matt, say this didn't slip by us. Team Rock, Team Paper, Team Scissors. What team would have you joined?
I think I would have picked Team Paper. What about you?
Team Paper?
Yeah.
Oh man, I think. So Matt, when you play rock, paper, scissors, do you always go paper? Is your first move always paper?
My first move is rock or paper. For some reason, I never pick.
Really?
I don't think I ever pick scissors to start.
I tend to, honestly, I think I would have gone Team Rock if I were to pick. And I think when I play rock, paper, scissors, honestly, I think scissors is usually my first move.
Really?
But for me, if I don't win with scissors, my second move is always rock.
Oh, true,
so
true.
If you ever see me in the wild and ask me to play rock, paper, scissors, you'll know what my game plan is. Yeah. But yeah,
it's either all the fingers or no fingers at that first throw, Jared.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point, Matt. Maybe I'm just a baby when it comes to rock, paper, scissors. But Splatoon 3 is coming out September 9th. I know we talked about it during our most anticipated game episode, but are you pulling the trigger on September 9th, Matt?
I think I am. I think I'm gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah,
for the most part, I'm pretty sure I'm going to buy that. Just because I love Splatoon, Matt. I love the different.
I hope I can preload it.
I think this got me thinking. Do you think it's kind of strange that Okay, so basically, what I'm about to ask to give context, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, comes to the Switch, is this big seller. I'm pretty sure it's sold gangbusters. They just released a different boost or track boosters, which I've heard mixed things about, like the booster tracks. But anyway, when I was talking to a few friends and they were saying how they didn't really expect there to be a new Mario Kart, especially with the boosters on the Switch. And the next time we see Mario Kart 9, when that comes around, that's probably on Nintendo's next console. So with Splatoon 2, launching within the Switch launch window, I'm not sure, but do you find it weird that we're getting another installment within the lifetime of the Switch?
Yeah, I do think it's kind of weird, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad about it. Because like I said during our not game of the year, anticipated
Yeah.
games, this is like a good jumping back on point for
Right.
me.
It's just because you didn't get to experience it, and like that's the zeitgeist moment of Splatoon 2. I feel that. I feel that.
The zeitgeist moment is so important, Jaren. That's the best time to play games.
Yeah, it really is, to be honest. Especially if it's something. I know we alluded to this during the Elden Ring episode last week, but especially when it's either a big multiplayer game or a big, culture, like a touchstone, like point for conversations. Like I really do think being part of the moment really amplifies it. And again, going back to Saints Row, considering that the discourse around it right now is kind of on the negative, that's why I'm kind of not really inclined to purchase it. But yeah, with Splatoon 3, it's coming out in a few weeks. It has the reputation. I've been a fan of the previous two games. And from what I have seen about the Splatfest world premiere, it's Splatoon. It's what you know and expect. And I am hopefully, Matt, when it is time to talk about it in 2-3 weeks, we'll actually get to talk about it.
Yeah.
But Matt, speaking about just games we're actually playing, other than an hour and a half of Saints Row, what else have you been up to?
After I refunded Saints Row, I bought a Cult of the Lamb.
Oh, Matt,
Jaren?
I've been hearing a lot about this game, but I don't exactly know what it is fully. What is Cult of the Lamb?
Cult of the Lamb is kind of a 2-part game. The first part of the game is you building a kind of like cult space where like you have your cult members, you have them like pray to statues, you do sermons with them, you have them harvest materials, harvest like wood, stone, do the usual kind of like base building type stuff of, hey, gather this material, craft these buildings. These buildings can automate some material gathering, and then you just like keep kind of like stacking together all these processes to like, oh, okay, now this building takes materials from another building and it upgrades them so you can build this next tier of buildings. It's like that sort of game.
Okay.
On one half. And then the other half is kind of a roguelite kind of game where it's kind of, the map system is very similar to Binding of Isaac.
Okay.
Where it's one room and then the room has like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 exits, and you pick one and you kind of just like keep going through the rooms until you reach the end room of that dungeon, and then you like exit it. It brings you to a kind of overworld map where you can pick your path. Like you've played a lot of deck builder type games where like after you finish the round you pick, oh, do you want to go here where it's like, oh, it's a heart, or here where it's a battle, here where it's an upgrade. Like you kind of do that for a few rounds, and then once you get to the end of the section, you return back to your base. Or if you've gone through the loop enough times, it's like 4 times, you fight a boss.
Okay.
And that's basically the whole gameplay loop. You go through the dungeon to get certain materials. That's where you also find your followers. And then you go back to town. You indoctrinate your followers. And then you kind of do your base building section for a bit. And then you can like go back. That's a general loop.
So Matt, the way you describe this game of essentially two genres creating one package, if roguelites were a thing maybe a decade ago, would we have pitched this game during season 2 of Saturday Morning Arcade?
100%. If we got the prompt, 100%. Even if we didn't get the prompt, that would definitely be one of the 2 things that we would have pitched.
Matt, I feel like with the rise of deck building and roguelikes, that would have been our go-to trope a lot of the times when we used to, for our online friends out there that might not know what we're talking about, during our college radio days of Saturday Morning Arcade, we would kind of use a name generating site to generate random video game names, and then we would try to, how would we pitch this game to a publisher so they can fund it for us? And a lot of the times our pitches would revolve around, hey, let's have 2 parts. One part would be this genre. The next part will be a kind of a different genre, which was most likely either something more action-packed. And Matt, the way you're describing Cult of the Lamb, that sounds exactly like it's in our wheelhouse of what we would have pitched. But so Matt, so it's basically, from what I'm saying, part management sim kind of, and then part dungeon scrolling roguelite.
Yes.
Of the two gameplay elements, do you think there's one is particularly stronger than the other, or do you think they're both pretty solid?
I see, Jared. This is where it falls apart.
Oh no.
They're both very middling.
Really?
Yes. Everything, like, essentially, once you get an hour into the game, that is all the new content you're gonna have, basically.
Okay, that sounds actually pretty rough.
Like, all that changes is the building you're automating, and in the dungeons, the tile set that you're going through. That's really, like, in essence, all that changes. And I told you before that I wanted to play Cult of the Lamb, and before I bought it, you had told me that you had, like, been reading or hearing some stuff about how it's a good game for about 10 hours.
Right.
And I can very much agree that it is a good game for 10 hours. I looked at my playtime when I decided to stop playing it, and I was at like 8.5.
Really?
And yeah, like, I think Cult of the Lamb is a very well-made game, but the issues are that it's not very deep. And for me, there are just some mechanics that made it very frustrating to play.
Really? Which mechanics would that be?
In the base building portion, the mechanic that really annoyed me is how often stuff breaks down. Because the way that I guess they're doing a resource thing is that all the buildings and stuff have the chance to break down when you're using them. So that's like a kind of annoying thing to deal with. And then in the dungeon delving portion of it, Cult of the Lamb's art style is very unique. I think it's a very good art style. The issue, though, is that the game is isometric in view, but everything is like kind of like 2D art, and it's kind of like on billboards. Like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So the dungeon delving itself, the gameplay is very similar to Hades, or it's that style of combat.
Right.
And that kind of combat, I think, does not lend itself well on a 3D space where everybody is billboards. And I was always having a very hard time, grasping the spacing.
Okay.
And the second issue is that when you start a run, you're given one random weapon and one random magic item. The issue for me is that the weapon pool contains, maybe like 7 weapons, and I think only 2 of them are good.
Oh no, that's actually pretty rough.
Yeah, because it's very much a game of, I think, hit and run.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dagger that doesn't do a lot on hit, or the claw where you have to reach the end of a combo to like get the most damage out of it. Like, I think if you're not using, an axe, or which is like, slow but strong hits, or a sword, which is just like, I guess, the most balanced one, you're gonna like run into, I think it's like hindering the gameplay a bit.
It's kind of a shame, Matt, just because
yeah,
from the little I've heard, and then from what you've explained to me, I think this notion of, it's half of this, cult simulator. Okay, it's not like Cult Simulator, that game, but this cult building, managing aspect versus the action roguelite. I think that could be a really good combo, but if you're telling me that they're both pretty middling, that's pretty disheartening to hear. In theory, do you think these things could be patched or modified in some way to make it a bit more enjoyable? Or do you think that at its foundation, you're not sure if improvements could be made to your gripes to the game?
I think you can patch everything except for the visual thing I was talking about, where it's like 2D on like a 3D fighting plane.
Okay.
Because like, for the weapons thing, you can just, change the weapons, or just you have a choice at the start.
Right.
Or for the base thing, you can just modify some numbers so it's not as annoying when stuff breaks down. Like, those I think are just like easy fixes that could come down the line. But I don't know if I would go back for them.
Okay.
Like, I think the game itself is fun. Like, I think it's like a decent game for when you're like getting into it. But I think it's a longevity issue for that game.
Right. Man.
Yeah.
That kind of bums me out just to hear about it. And maybe I think what I did hear about the game, a lot of people were comparing it to Hades, and Honestly, Matt, again, since we were on hiatus, we didn't really get to talk about it, but I really do hold Hades to a really high regard, and mostly just because roguelites have become such, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of the go-to genre for a lot of indie games right now, where
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Hades kind of perfected the roguelite formula, especially for more casual audiences. So when people do compare it to Hades, I feel like that's such a strong sentiment to me because you're kind of comparing it to the quality of Hades, which, for that team to, the game was in early access for so long. So it has been, optimized. It has been play tested to get it to
Mm-hmm.
the state it's currently in, to where, I don't know, Matt. I feel like when people, it's kind of the same thing with, oh, this is like a Souls Light, where at one
Mm-hmm.
point that reputation might do it a disservice just because we mentioned it during the Hades episode, I mean, the Elden Ring episode next week, where a lot of these Souls like games don't necessarily have the same, oomph or the same chutzpah
Yeah.
as a FromSoft game, as a Souls game. And the same thing with, I guess, with roguelites coming out, if people were to say, oh, it's kind of like Hades, I feel like the quality needs to be there to actually say this is kind of like Hades. Maybe that's just me talking, but
I think the big issue, though, isn't necessarily that it's a roguelike.
yeah.
I think the issue is it's two genres coming together trying to be one game. I think that is like, I always conceptually liked that idea.
Yeah.
But I think in practice, it's way too hard to do it well. Like, I think, like, Cult of the Lamb, the two portions are fun until you realize that they're not very deep.
Right.
Same thing for Moonlighter. I think the two portions are fun until you realize it's not very deep. Almost sort of like Reciteer. I think the two portions are fun, but like one of the portions is heavily underdeveloped, and one of the other, and like the main portion is, I don't know. It's like it's okay for a while. I think having the two portions just means you're half baking like two ideas. It's
Right.
gonna be very hard to like get them both on point.
So it's kind of similar to, that cliche of, oh, jack of all trades, master of none type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I get where you're coming from in that regard. And I don't know, that's just really disheartening to hear, where I think I do want to check it out eventually, but one of the things that I did hear about from a friend regarding Call of the Lamb is that you can probably get all the achievements within 25 hours of play. And if you're saying you can't make it past 10, I think that's a really rough ask to get all the achievements as well. Not that like achievements matter or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but so you don't think you're going to go back to Call of the Lamb, Matt?
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm gonna go to Cult of the Lamb. I'm burning a lot of time right now, Jaren, on PlateUp.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that is, Matt.
Jaren,
What is it?
PlateUp is basically roguelike overcooked.
Okay, Matt, we're still mashing two genres together in a way, but does this work, and how are you liking it?
I'm enjoying it so far. There's a free demo on Steam that lets you play for, you can get like, I don't know. It's co-opable, and
Right.
two, like it's a pretty like nice demo. You can get maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours out of it in co-op play.
Yeah.
I've burned about 10 hours on it in the past 24 hours, and it's pretty good. It's like, if it's overcooked, but this time there's a lot more automation to it.
Okay.
You're, instead of just running the kitchen portion of the restaurant, you're running the whole restaurant. So I think that's the biggest deviation from Overcooked.
Right.
You're setting up your food stations, you're cooking, and then you're delivering it out to the customers. You have to wait for the customers to eat, and then you have to clear the food, wash your dishes, and everything. Like, it's the whole restaurant thing. And if you're playing by yourself, it's sort of manageable. Like, you're just running a small kitchen. Co-op is where it gets a lot more interesting, because I think even more than Overcooked, this game really needs you to break everybody down into roles.
Right.
Like, you're gonna have a cook, you're gonna have a dishwasher, you're gonna have a server, you're gonna have your float for whoever's like needs more help or even cleaning. Because Jaren, I think the wildest thing in this game that Overcooked doesn't have is the customers. You
Right.
don't interact directly with the customers in Overcooked. The customers in this game, Jaren, are monsters. I think that the person who made this game just worked in a restaurant and hates customers, because these customers just, like, I don't know, they're like vomiting on the floor and you can't like run past it. It slows you down. Like everything is just, it's so frustrating interacting with the customers. I heavily prefer being on the kitchen side than being on the customer facing side. But I don't know if that's just a reflection of how I actually like to live my real ass life.
Okay, I feel that, Matt. So, Matt, paint me more of a picture of PlateUp. I know with Overcooked, we have the flavor of it. Oh, I think in Overcooked, one, you're going on, isn't it like a road trip adventure type thing, or you're trying to fight, some demon lord or something like that? Or maybe I'm getting confused with Overcooked 2 with the adventuring part.
I think that's both of them, to be honest.
What's the flavor behind this, and where does the roguelite element come in, if there is a story to it?
Okay, so the story, there's like no story. It's basically,
Okay.
hey, you're trying to start a restaurant franchise, so you
Right.
have to make one good restaurant first. The roguelike elements of it are that the layout of your restaurant and the food that you're gonna serve, you're like randomly given 3 layouts and you're randomly given 3 foods, and you pick your restaurant layout from those 3, and you pick the food that you're gonna serve from those 3, and then you like set out on your restaurant adventure. And
Okay.
then in the restaurant, you're given like a primary set of tools. Like you're given like, oh, your cook, or your just like countertops, tables, like your standard like restaurant stuff. And then every day that you finish, you're given a random assortment of restaurant items. It could
Okay.
be additional sinks, it could be dishwashers, it could be more plates, more tables for your dining room, like better stoves, automatic stoves, like microwaves, like more just kitchen paraphernalia, right? And like then every few days you have a modifier added, like, oh, your customers are going to get impatient faster, or your customers are going to be more messy, or your customers, like, you can't see how long they've been waiting anymore, like it's just going to hide all the gauges from you.
Right.
Like you'll have those kind of things, and then you'll have the option to buy upgrades for your store. It's like, oh,
Okay.
once you buy 3 of these upgrades, your customers are going to make less of a mess, or your customers are going to be more patient, like that sort of thing. Like it
Okay.
kind of balances it between like, oh, your customers are going to be more monstrous, but now you're going to be better at dealing with them, sort
Right.
of thing. And you do that for a certain amount of days. I think it's like 12. And then once you finish 12 days worth of work, you're able to essentially go into a new game plus, where it saves your current restaurant. You pick, I think, 3 of the negative customer modifiers, and then you get 1 like super modifier, or super beneficial modifier, and then you go back into your game. You can play it for as long as you want, but then when you decide to leave that game, you can create a franchise of that restaurant, and it's based on what food layout you had before, or not layout, it's just the food, whatever 3 customer bonuses or customer difficulties you added, and then your super bonus. And then it's basically like a new game plus type thing.
Okay. That's actually pretty cool. I was going
Yeah,
to
it's a good
ask
system.
where the endpoint lies, just because I feel that's really an important aspect to me, where I think I really liked the idea of Overcooked, just because, each level is bite-sized. You have a set amount of time, you have to do something, and then you try to see if you're able to get your 3-star rating within that time. So when that's applied to a roguelite aspect, we're kind of used to, there's eventually going to be some sort of end goal, some sort of end point. And within the context of a restaurant environment, I was curious what that end point is, which is kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good game. Like, very enjoyable.
In regards to, I guess, just the overcookedness or the gameplay to it, how casual friendly do you think it is in comparison to Overcooked? And 2, does it do the whole thing where depending on how many people are playing, I know with Overcooked, the mentality is, oh, if you're playing 2 people, everything, you're essentially doing the work for, if, say you were with 2 people, you're doing the work for a 3-person team, and if you have 3 people, you're doing work for a 4-person team, etc. Kind of that ramp up. So I guess how does the gameplay compare, and 2, does it get as frantic as later Overcooked levels?
I think that PlateUp is a lot less frantic than Overcooked, because there's a lot of stuff happening in Overcooked, like, oh, your like floor is moving, or the floor is lava, or your kitchen's like sliding around.
Yeah,
PlateUp is much more simple. Like it's kind of based in realism.
Okay,
where you're not gonna have all that wacky stuff. It's a lot more like, it's not hectic. It's just a lot more. I don't want to say like real work, because that makes it sound kind of like depressing. I think, but it's a lot more structured in terms of what you have to do. And with regards to like player difficulty, I think you kind of scale it on your own with what you decide to buy.
Okay.
Because when you're playing by yourself, you get a bonus because you're just soloing it, right? But you're able to buy more tables, right? And I think that's the thing that lets you control how hectic you're going to let your restaurant get. Okay. Because the more tables you have, the more mess it's going to create, the more customers you'll be able to serve at once. So when you have multiple people, it's beneficial to have multiple tables.
Okay. That makes sense.
But like, it's that sort of thing. You kind of like you're sort of scaling the difficulty on your own. But when you're on your own as well, you're able to also buy stuff that like slightly automates the harder tasks for you. I guess it's easier to like decide like, I don't know, what you're going to buy, instead of having to discuss it as a team and being like, okay, everybody's like, instead of like fully automating one portion of the process, you're going to slightly automate like 3.
Right. Okay.
So that everybody has like their plates a little bit easier. Yeah. It's a good game.
It's actually really cool, man.
It's worth checking out. It's only like 20 Canadian, so I'm assuming like 50 in US.
True. Okay, yeah, I definitely do want to check this out. I'll see what platforms it's available on as well. But no, that sounds really cool, Matt. And my final question, Matt, you were saying a lot of these, the customers are monsters. Matt, are the customers actually monsters, or are we just dealing with like humanoid people?
You're dealing with humanoid people. They're all gang beasts. It's like gang beast type characters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's those kind of dudes.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I definitely want to check this out sometime.
Sure, checking it. Yeah.
Thank you for introducing me to a new game, Matt.
Yeah.
And Matt, I'm proud of ourselves just because this week, again, I can't stress this enough. This was supposed to be a beefy gaming week, and yet not as beefy as we thought it would be, but still beefy in other areas, which is good to hear, Matt. And I think that puts a bow on this week's episode of The Mistake Zone. Pretty crazy, Matt. Didn't expect to be where we are, but here we are. I want to thank you, as always, for joining me on our audio adventure. I want to thank all our friends out there for joining us as well. Matt, what's our next hot take that will be completely wrong, you think? Considering we totally flubbed playing Saints Row and Midnight Fight Express this week.
Is it going to be that Saints Row? No, not Saints Row. Splatoon 3 is going to be bad?
Oh no, Matt.
Are we not going to get Splatoon 3, Jaren?
I couldn't. Man, that would make me feel really bad, Matt. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Jaren, I'm telling you now, I'm really looking forward to my half a week to 2 weeks worth of playing Splatoon 3 until I think everybody got way too sweaty when really I'm just bad.
Oh man,
and then I stop playing.
Can't wait to tell you how bad I am at ranked Splatoon in 3 weeks or so. But yeah, I want to thank all our friends once again for joining us. This has been actually, Matt, for something that was Saints Row free for the most part, gameplay wise, I'm glad we got to talk about some other games as well. So, Matt, this has been another episode of the Mistake Zone. I've rambled on a lot, but for the most part, I think we did pretty okay when it came to some mistakes. But take it away, my friend.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of Saints Row.